Leia Organa had learned how to stand still while the galaxy collapsed around her. She had learned it as a child in marble halls, when her father's hand rested lightly on her shoulder and visiting senators smiled too widely at one another. She had learned it in the Imperial Senate, when she wore white and spoke with a voice trained to sound calm, while fear moved like poison beneath every polished word. She had learned it on the Death Star, when a monster in black armor demanded the location of a rebel base, and she gave him defiance instead. She had learned it above Endor, when the second battle station exploded, and everyone around her cheered, as if victory could wash blood from memory. Now, standing on a balcony above the dark green cliffs of Corellia, she realized she had never learned how to stand still after the collapse ended. The war had not truly ended, of course. Imperial warlords still carved their little kingdoms into frightened sectors. Governors who had once bent before the Emperor now claimed they had always hated him. Fleets vanished into the unknown regions, Moffs burned records, assassinated witnesses, and swore loyalty to anyone with enough Star Destroyers to protect them. But the Emperor was dead. Darth Vader was dead. The second Death Star was dust. The Rebel Alliance had become something new, something fragile and loud and idealistic, something that called itself a government while still carrying blasters under conference tables. The Provisional Council met on Coruscant now, inside chambers that had once echoed with Palpatine's voice. Leia had been ordered to rest before returning to help build the Republic her father had died believing in. Rest. The word felt almost insulting. Behind her, from inside the cabin, Han Solo muttered at a stubborn food heater that refused to obey him. Chewbacca had gone to visit his family. Luke had gone back to Tatooine to find silence among the ghosts of his childhood, and Han had brought Leia here, to a secluded mountain retreat owned by a man who owed him favors and had learned not to ask questions. Corellia was beautiful in a rough, weather-beaten way. Its mountains did not gleam like Alderaan's. Its forests were denser, darker, less graceful. Its cities had grit under their fingernails. Its people spoke too quickly, laughed too loudly, and treated laws like suggestions written by humorless strangers. Han loved it. He tried not to show it too openly, but Leia saw him soften when they walked through old spaceports and narrow market streets. She saw the boy he must have been, hungry and clever, making jokes before anyone could hurt him. She saw how his shoulders lowered when the wind smelled of fuel, rain, and iron. He belonged here, even if he claimed he belonged nowhere. Leia envied him for that. She tightened her fingers around the balcony rail and looked toward the evening sky. Alderaan had not had sunsets like this. Alderaan's light had been softer, spread across snow and glassy lakes, catching on towers built with impossible elegance. She had spent years trying not to remember the exact shade of the palace at dusk. Remembering hurt too much. A hand brushed the small of her back. "You're doing that thing again," Han said. Leia did not turn. "What thing?" "Staring like you're about to declare war on the horizon." Her mouth twitched, but the smile did not last. "Maybe the horizon deserves it." Han leaned beside her, hair damp from a recent shower, shirt open at the throat, expression more careful than his words. He had become better at reading her than he admitted. That frightened her sometimes. It comforted her more. "You don't like it here?" he asked. "I like it." That didn't sound convincing. "I do," she said, softer. "It's just yours." Han frowned. "Mine?" "Your world, your streets, your mountains, your bad food and worse manners." "Bad food?" Han. "All right, some of the food is bad." She looked at him then, and the ache inside her shifted. He was trying. He always tried sideways, with jokes and crooked smiles. But he tried. That mattered. "You know what it feels like to be from somewhere," she said, "even when you pretend you don't." His face changed. Not much. Enough. Leia looked away before her eyes betrayed her. "I used to know that." Han said nothing for a moment. Then his arm slid around her waist, careful at first, as though grief had sharp edges. "I can't give you Alderaan," he said. "I know." "I'd steal it if I could." This time her laugh broke into something dangerously close to a sob. Han pulled her against him, and Leia let herself lean there. She was tired of being marble, tired of being the princess who survived, tired of being the symbol that people saluted when they had no idea what her survival had cost. "I miss my father," she whispered. Han's chin rested against her hair. Leia closed her eyes. Bail Organa's face came to her with painful clarity. His calm eyes, his silvering hair, his hand lifting in farewell the day she left Alderaan for what should have been another secret mission, another careful move in a rebellion built on whispers. She had not known she was saying goodbye, forever. "I wish he could see it," she said. "The Empire broken, the Senate restored, the first steps toward everything he wanted. He'd be proud of you. You didn't know him." "No," Han admitted, "but I know you." Leia's throat tightened. Before she could answer, a chime sounded from inside the cabin. Han stiffened. "That's not the door." Leia pulled away, alert instantly. The sound came again, sharper this time. A secure transmission. Not from the cabin's local system. From the Falcon's relay, patched through to the retreat. Han cursed under his breath and ran inside. Leia followed. The cabin's main room was cluttered in a way that suggested Han had been present for more than a few hours. A jacket hung over a chair. Tools from some unnecessary repair littered the table. A half-eaten meal steamed beside a datapad filled with Republic briefs Leia had promised not to read until tomorrow. Han was already at the comm unit, fingers moving fast. "Encrypted Alliance code," he said. "New Republic code," Leia corrected automatically. He gave her a look. "Yeah, sure, that." The hologram sputtered. Static rose in a pale blue storm, then shaped itself into the anxious face of Mon Mothma. Leia straightened. "Madam Chancellor? I apologize for disturbing your leave," Mon Mothma said. Leia's heart sank. "What happened?" "That depends on whether the message we received is authentic." Han moved closer. "What message?" Mon Mothma's gaze shifted, and for the first time since Leia had known her, the older woman looked uncertain. "A distress beacon reached Coruscant less than an hour ago. It used an Alderaanian diplomatic encryption almost no one alive should possess." Leia's breath caught. Mon Mothma continued carefully. "The voice on the recording identified himself as Bail Organa." The room went silent. Han turned toward Leia as if expecting her to sway. She did not. She became still instead. Perfectly still. "That's impossible," Leia said. "I know. My father died on Alderaan." "We believed so." "No," Leia said, sharper. "He did. Everyone did." Mon Mothma lowered her eyes. "Leia, the message was badly degraded. It may be a trap. It may be an Imperial deception. It may be someone using stolen codes." "Play it," Han said. "Leia, play it!" Mon Mothma hesitated only a moment. Then the hologram dissolved into static. A voice came through. Old. Weak. Buried under interference. "This is Bail Organa, formerly of Alderaan, transmitting from emergency refuge vessel Dawn of Queen Breha. Authentication phrase: for the daughter of my heart. Snow lilies bloom even beneath glass." Leia's knees nearly failed. Han caught her elbow. She barely felt it. The voice continued, each word frayed. "If the rebellion lives, if my daughter lives, tell her. Tell Leia I am sorry. Tell her I tried to come home." The recording ended. Leia stared at the empty projection. Snow lilies bloom even beneath glass. No one outside her family knew that phrase. It came from a story Breha had told her when Leia was small and feverish, curled under blankets while winter pressed against the palace windows. Bail had repeated it whenever Leia faced something impossible. It meant endure. It meant beauty could survive where no one expected it. It meant courage was not the absence of fear, but the refusal to bow to it. Han's hand tightened around her arm. Leia pulled free and stepped toward the comm. "Where did it come from?" Mon Mothma looked pained. A derelict beacon near the edge of the Cantorus Drift. That's a graveyard sector. Yes, filled with wreckage from the early Imperial purges. Navigation is dangerous. I'm going. Leia, I'm going. Mon Mothma sighed, as if she had expected nothing else. A new Republic frigate can depart within the day. No, too visible. If this is a trap, I won't bring a military target. Han folded his arms. Guess that means you need a fast ship and a pilot dumb enough to fly into a graveyard. Leia looked at him. He shrugged. Lucky for you. Mon Mothma did not smile. Commander Skywalker is being recalled as well. Leia's stomach tightened again. Luke. Of course Luke would come. He had only just learned the truth of their blood, only just begun to understand what it meant that Darth Vader had been their father. They had spoken of it only in fragments. Leia could barely bear the shape of it. Bail Organa had been her father. Anakin Skywalker was a fact she did not know how to touch. Mon Mothma's image steadied. Leia, there is something else. The signal included fragments of an old Alderaanian evacuation registry. Some names match officials believed lost with the planet. Leia's hand rose to her mouth. Survivors. Not many. Perhaps none still living. Perhaps only ghosts in a damaged computer. But even ghosts deserved to be heard. When do we leave? She asked. Han was already reaching for his jacket. Soon as I get the Falcon warmed up. Leia looked once toward the balcony, toward the Corellian dusk and the life she had almost allowed herself to imagine for one quiet evening. Then she turned away. The Millennium Falcon dropped out of hyperspace into a field of dead ships. Leia had seen battlefields before. She had seen the aftermath of Scarif, Yavin, Hoth, Endor. But the Cantorus Drift was older than recent war, and somehow worse for it. Wreckage floated in layered darkness, hulls broken open like bones. Some vessels were Clone Wars antiques. Others bore the clean, cruel lines of early Imperial design. A few had Alderaanian markings, faded by radiation and time. Han whistled low from the pilot's seat. Chewie would hate this. Luke stood behind him, one hand resting on the back of the chair. He had arrived at the Corellian landing field with dust still on his boots and questions in his eyes. He had hugged Leia before speaking. She had held on longer than she intended. Now he looked out at the graveyard with the distant expression he wore when listening to the Force. There's pain here, he said. Han glanced back. That a Jedi thing or a very obvious thing? Both. Leia ignored them, studying the sensor display. The beacon is coming from that cluster. Han followed her gesture. The one surrounded by mines? Old mines, Luke said. Han gave him a look. That doesn't make me feel better. They may be inactive. Kid, I've made a living around things people said may be inactive. Leia leaned forward. There! A shape emerged between drifting hulls. Not a warship. A diplomatic cruiser, Alderaanian by design, though modified heavily. Its elegant lines were scarred, armor plates bolted over once polished surfaces. The name on the side was almost gone. Dawn of Queen Breha. Leia stopped breathing. Han's voice softened. That's it. No lights shone from the vessel. No engines. No sign of life beyond the repeating pulse of the distress beacon. Luke looked at Leia. I feel something. Danger? He closed his eyes. Fear, hope, old grief. Han muttered. Great, the usual. They docked with difficulty. The cruiser's outer lock resisted power transfer, then opened with a groan that vibrated through the Falcon's hull. Leia stood in the corridor, wearing a white insulated flight jacket over her tunic, blaster at her hip, hair braided back with military practicality. Luke carried his lightsaber. Han carried two blasters, and the expression of a man who disliked every part of this. The hatch opened. Cold air breathed over them. The Alderaanian ship smelled of metal, dust, and failing life support. Emergency lights flickered along narrow corridors. Frost glittered on wall panels. Leia stepped inside first before Han could stop her. Her boots touched the deck, and a memory struck her so sharply she nearly stumbled. Alderaanian craftsmanship had a rhythm. Curving doorways, softly inset lights, carved floral patterns along handrails meant to remind travelers that even ships carried gardens in spirit. Leia had not stood inside anything so purely Alderaanian since the day her world died. She reached out and touched the wall. Luke came beside her. Leia? I'm fine. Han did not challenge the lie. Beacons this way. They moved through the ship. Some compartments were sealed. Others had been stripped bare. They found old ration crates, empty medical capsules, children's blankets folded with heartbreaking care. On one wall, someone had painted the crest of Alderaan by hand. Leia stared at it until Luke gently said her name. The beacon room lay near the center of the ship. Han forced the door open. Inside, an emergency transmitter blinked weakly. Beside it stood a protocol droid with one arm missing and half its faceplating gone. The droid turned its head with a k sound. Princess Leia Organa, it said. Leia raised her blaster. The droid dipped unsteadily. Forgive my appearance. I am Taron Vesh, Diplomatic Service Unit to the House of Organa. I have awaited your arrival. Han. Convenient. The droid's damaged photoreceptor flickered. I assure you, Captain Solo, very little about the last several years has been convenient. Leia stepped closer. Where is Bail Organa? The droid paused. Too long. My mistress, it said softly. Senator Organa is alive. Leia's blaster lowered. Luke inhaled. Han whispered a curse. Where? Leia demanded. In medical stasis. His condition is unstable. The system revived briefly when the beacon transmitted, but power loss forced renewed suspension. Leia's voice trembled despite every effort. Take me to him. The droid led them down 2 decks, each colder than the last. As they walked, it explained in broken fragments. On the day Alderaan died, Bail Organa had not been in the palace at the moment the Death Star arrived. He had been aboard an emergency courier in high orbit, meeting with surviving members of a hidden evacuation committee. The Empire had jammed transmissions. The Death Star fired before the courier could flee. The shockwave crippled nearby vessels, killing most aboard. Bail's ship had been thrown into hyperspace by a desperate blind jump, along with several damaged refugee craft. They emerged in the Kentaris Drift, broken, hidden, and unable to call for help without risking Imperial detection. Leia listened without speaking. Some survivors lived for years in the Drift, moving between damaged ships, hiding from patrols, preserving names, songs, records, anything that proved Alderaan had been more than debris. Bail had led them until illness and injury overtook him. Others died slowly. Some tried to escape and never returned. The last caretaker had passed away not long before Endor, leaving only the droid and the stasis systems. Why didn't he contact the rebellion? Leia asked. The droid's remaining eye dimmed. He attempted to, several times. Imperial hunters monitored Alderaanian frequencies. Each transmission risked discovery. Senator Organa believed your mission was too important to endanger. Leia almost laughed. It came out as a broken breath. Of course he had. Of course Bail Organa, who had taught her that leadership meant sacrifice, had hidden in darkness rather than risk exposing the rebellion. The medical bay door opened. Leia saw the stasis chamber. For a moment she was a child again, running through palace corridors with scraped knees and stubborn tears, trying not to cry because princesses were brave. Bail had knelt before her then, not caring about the dirt on his robes, and told her that courage was not proven by refusing pain. Courage was proven by choosing love after pain. Now he lay behind frosted transparasteel, thinner than memory, beard streaked white, face lined by suffering and time. Leia crossed the room slowly, her hand pressed to the chamber. Father, she whispered. The word broke something open. Han stayed by the door. Luke stood near the wall, eyes wet, giving her space. Taron Vesh connected the chamber to a portable power unit. The system hummed. Frost receded. Medical lights crawled across Bail Organa's still form. He may not wake fully, the droid warned. His body is weak. Leia did not look away. Wake him. The chamber opened with a... Bail Organa breathed. His eyes moved beneath closed lids. His fingers twitched. Leia took his hand, shocked by how fragile it felt. "Father," she said again. "It's Leia." His eyes opened, clouded at first, searching, then clear enough to recognize her. "Little star," Bail whispered. Leia bent over him, and the galaxy vanished. She cried then, not like a general, not like a senator, not like the last princess of Alderaan, but like a daughter who had been carrying a grave inside her chest, and had suddenly found it empty. Bail's hand rose weakly to her cheek. "You lived. So did you." A faint smile touched his mouth. "Stubborn family." She laughed through tears. Han looked down, pretending not to watch. Luke wiped his face openly. Bail's gaze shifted past Leia. He saw Luke. Something in his expression changed. "Obi-Wan's boy," he whispered. Luke stepped forward, stunned. "You knew?" "I knew enough." Bail's eyes moved back to Leia. "And now you know." Leia's tears cooled. The room seemed to shrink. Bail felt it. Even weak, even half dead, he knew her too well. "Leia," he said. She pulled back slightly. "Did you know who Vader was?" Han stiffened. Luke closed his eyes. Bail's hand trembled in hers. "Yes," he said. The answer struck harder than she expected. Leia released his hand and stood. Han took a step forward. She stopped him with a look. "You knew," Leia said, voice thin and dangerous. "You knew Darth Vader was my birth father." Bail's face twisted with pain. "Yes." "And you never told me." "No." "You let me stand in front of him. You let me fight him. You let him torture me." Bail flinched as if she had struck him. Luke spoke softly. "Leia." "Don't." Luke fell silent. Leia looked at the man she had mourned every day since Alderaan burned. The man she had loved with absolute certainty. The man who had shaped her, protected her, trusted her, and lied to her. "Why?" she asked. Bail's breathing grew rough. Taran Vesh moved to adjust a monitor, but Bail lifted one weak hand, refusing interruption. "At first," he said, "because you were a baby, because your mother was dead, because the Emperor had won, because if Vader knew you existed, he would never stop hunting you." Leia's jaw tightened. "As you grew," Bail continued, "I told myself I was waiting for the right time. Then you became brave, brilliant, furious at injustice. You wanted the truth about everything. I feared what that truth would do to you." "You had no right." "No," Bail whispered. "I did not." The admission disarmed her more than any defense could have. He closed his eyes briefly. "I failed you there. I thought I was protecting you from his shadow. Instead, I left you to meet it without armor." Leia's anger trembled, tangled with love so deep it hurt. "He held me down, while a droid put needles in my body," she said, each word forced through her teeth. "He made me watch Alderaan die." Bail's eyes opened, horror filling them. "Leia." "He was my father by blood," she said. "But you were my father. You. And now even that feels like it has been stolen from me." Bail shook his head weakly. "No, never." "How can you say that?" "Because blood is not fatherhood." His voice strengthened, not in volume, but in conviction. "Leia, I loved you before I knew the sound of your cry. I loved you when your mother placed you in my arms and trusted me with all that remained of her hope. I loved you through fevers, tantrums, lessons, arguments, missions you were too young to take and took anyway. I loved you when you defied me. I loved you when you frightened me. I loved you every moment of your life." Leia covered her mouth. Bail reached for her, and after a long, wounded moment, she let him take her hand again. "Vader gave you blood," he said. "He did not give you your name. He did not teach you mercy. He did not sit beside your bed during storms. He did not watch you become the fiercest soul Alderaan ever raised. Your identity is not a chain he forged." Luke's eyes shone. "Leia, Luke forgave him." Bail looked toward Luke. "Luke, there was still good in him." Leia turned away. "Not for me." No one spoke. The machines hummed. Somewhere in the old ship, metal groaned. Bail said, "You do not owe the dead your forgiveness." Luke lowered his gaze, accepting the words though they hurt. Leia looked back at Bail. "I don't know who I am anymore," she admitted. Bail's face softened. "Yes, you do. I am Vader's daughter." "You are Leia Organa." "I am Alderaan's princess, without Alderaan." "You are Alderaan." She shook her head. "You are," Bail insisted. "Every law you fight for, every prisoner you refuse to abandon, every tyrant you stand against, every time you choose duty over comfort and compassion over hatred, Alderaan breathes through you." Leia wept silently now. Bail's thumb brushed her knuckles. "The Empire destroyed our world because it feared what Alderaan meant. Peace with courage, beauty with strength, mercy with teeth. That did not die with the planet." Han's voice came from behind her. "He's right." Leia looked over her shoulder. Han shrugged, uncomfortable with sincerity but unwilling to retreat from it. "I mean, I never saw Alderaan, but I know what it made." His eyes met hers. "That's you." Leia closed her eyes. For years she had believed home was a place she could never return to. Then Han had offered her Corellia, the Falcon, himself. Luke had offered her blood, a bond both comforting and terrifying. Vader had left her a legacy she wanted to burn out of her veins. And Bail, impossibly alive, was offering her name back. Leia Organa. Not a lie, a choice, an inheritance, a truth. Alarm suddenly through the medical bay. Han spun toward the corridor. "That can't be good." Taran Vesh's head jerked. "Proximity warning. Armed vessels entering the drift." Leia wiped her face and straightened. The general returned, not because the daughter vanished, but because the daughter had learned from the general's father. "Imperial?" she asked. The droid checked the wall panel. "Yes, remnant patrol. They likely detected the beacon." Han drew his blaster. "How many?" "Several fighters. One light cruiser." Luke's lightsaber snapped into his hand, unlit. "We need to move Bail to the Falcon." Taran Vesh turned toward the stasis chamber. "His condition is too unstable for rapid transport." Leia looked at Bail. He understood immediately. "No. You don't know what I'm thinking. I raised you. Yes, I do." Han looked between them. "Someone want to share?" Leia moved to the medical console. "The Dawn has old diplomatic countermeasures. Decoy transmitters, sensor ghosts, maybe enough power for one engine burn." Taran Vesh tilted his damaged head. "The systems are unreliable." "Can you make them work?" "For a short period, perhaps." Han stared at Leia. "You want to use this wreck as bait?" "I want to use this ship's systems to hide the Falcon until we can jump." "And if they board?" Leia checked her blaster. "Then they find me." "No," Bail said. Leia turned. He struggled to rise, failed, and glared with familiar royal authority despite his weakness. "Absolutely not." A wild, impossible rose in Leia's chest. "You're giving me orders now?" "Yes." "You've been presumed dead for years. Your authority is questionable." "Leia." Her smile faded. Bail's eyes burned with fear. Not for himself. Never for himself. "I did not survive all this to watch you trade your life for mine." Leia stepped close. "And I did not spend years fighting the Empire to abandon survivors in the dark." Bail's expression shifted. There she was, reflected in him, the argument they had always had in different forms. He had taught her duty, then feared the blade he had sharpened. Han interrupted. Great family reunion, really touching, but the bad guys are coming. Luke looked at Leia. We can do both. Han groaned. Whenever a Jedi says that, my insurance gets worse. Luke pointed toward the display. The cruiser's tractor system is damaged but active. If we lure the fighters into the wreckage field and trigger a magnetic pulse from the Dawn, it could disable them. The Falcon can dock here, take Bail aboard during the confusion, then jump. Han stared. That's insane, Leia said. Can it work? Han hesitated. I didn't say it couldn't work. I said it's insane. Leia nodded. Then we do it. Within minutes, the dead ship awakened like an old queen lifting her head. Emergency lights brightened. Ancient Alderaanian systems stuttered to life. Han returned to the Falcon, muttering about Jedi plans and princess plans, and how both were bad for his health. Luke stayed aboard the Dawn with Leia, helping Taran Vesh route power while medical droids prepared Bail for emergency transport. The Imperial patrol arrived in formation, cold and efficient. Their commander hailed the Dawn with smug authority. Unidentified vessel, you are transmitting illegal rebel codes. Power down and prepare to be boarded in the name of the legitimate Imperial government. Leia stood at the communications station. Her face hardened. She opened the channel. This is Leia Organa of Alderaan, she said. The Empire is dead. You're only thieves wearing its corpse. A pause followed. Then the Imperial commander replied, voice sharpened by recognition. Princess Organa, remain where you are. Lord Vader may be gone, but there are many who would pay richly for his daughter. Leia's blood turned to ice. Luke looked at her. The commander laughed softly. Yes, we know. Secrets have a way of surviving their masters. Leia felt Vader's shadow reach for her again. Then Bail's voice came from behind her, weak but clear. Leia. She turned. He lay on a repulsor stretcher, pale and fragile, but his eyes held hers. Remember who you are, he said. Leia turned back to the comm. I know exactly who I am. She cut the channel. Now, Luke said. Taran Vesh activated the decoy transmitters. The drift erupted with false signals. Ghost ships appeared on Imperial sensors, Alderaanian cruisers and rebel gunships blooming out of static. The fighters broke formation, chasing targets that did not exist. The light cruiser advanced, trying to cut through the confusion. Han's voice crackled over the comm. You've got 3 eyeballs heading your way. I see them, Leia said. Luke stood beside the magnetic pulse controls, eyes half closed, sensing the right moment through currents Leia could not feel. The first TIE fighter screamed past the viewport. The second followed. The third fired. The Dawn shook violently. Sparks rained from the ceiling. Bail's stretcher lurched, and Leia grabbed it before it slammed into a console. Luke! Wait. Another blast struck. Taran Vesh collapsed, one leg severed by falling debris. Wait, Luke repeated, calm as starlight. Leia trusted him. The Imperial fighters curved through the wreckage field, lining up for another pass. Luke opened his eyes. Now! Leia slammed the activation lever. The pulse burst outward. For an instant, every light on the Dawn died. Through the viewport, TIE fighters spun helplessly, engines flickering out. Minds long dormant awakened under the magnetic surge and detonated in silent blossoms of fire. The Imperial cruiser veered, shields flaring as debris hammered its hull. The Falcon shot from behind the Dawn's broken spine, guns blazing. Han whooped over the comm. That's for interrupting my vacation. Leia almost smiled. Luke lifted Taran Vesh with the Force, while Leia guided Bail's stretcher toward the docking corridor. The ship groaned around them. Systems were failing. The Dawn had given its last strength. At the airlock, Han appeared, breathless, blaster smoking. Move, move, move! They rushed Bail aboard. Luke carried the damaged droid. Leia was last through the hatch. She stopped at the threshold and looked back. The Alderaanian corridor flickered in dying light. Painted flowers curled along the walls, The crest of her lost world shimmered faintly through smoke. For a heartbeat, Leia wanted to stay. Then Han grabbed her hand. "Leia!" She crossed into the Falcon, the hatch sealed. The Falcon tore free, just as the dawn of Queen Breha's reactor began to fail. Han threw the ship through twisting wreckage, cursing with creative devotion. Luke strapped Bail into the med bunk. Leia ran to the cockpit and dropped into the co-pilot's seat. "Coordinates?" Han barked. Leia entered them. The Imperial cruiser fired. The Falcon bucked. Warning lights screamed. "Any time, sweetheart!" "Punch it!" Stars stretched. The drift vanished. Hyperspace swallowed them in blue fire. Only then did Leia realize she was still shaking. Han's hand covered hers on the console. Neither of them spoke. Back on Coruscant, the return of Bail Organa became the kind of miracle politicians immediately tried to control. Mon Mothma wanted secrecy until his health stabilized. Alderaanian survivors wanted access. Intelligence officers wanted testimony about Imperial crimes in the Canteris Drift. Senators wanted statements, appearances, legitimacy. Rumors spread anyway. Some said Leia had found a clone. Others said the Organa line had hidden a fleet. One particularly imaginative report claimed Bail had returned from the Force itself to crown Leia queen of a restored Alderaan. Leia ignored them all. For 3 days, she barely left the medical suite. Bail slept often. When awake, he asked questions about everything. The Alliance, the Emperor, the Senate, Endor, Luke, Han. Especially Han. "He loves you," Bail said one evening. Leia looked up from a stack of reports she was pretending to read. "That is not a question." "No. You've known him for minutes. I watched him threaten a medical droid because it adjusted your chair too abruptly." Leia's mouth curved. Han expresses concern badly. He expresses it honestly. Leia set the datapad aside. Through the window, Coruscant glowed in endless layers. Towers rising into traffic streams and artificial dawn. She had once hated this planet for what it represented. Now it was a battlefield of another kind. "He asked me to marry him," she said. Bail's eyebrows rose. "Before the message came." "And what did you say?" Leia looked at her hands. "Yes." Bail was quiet long enough that she grew nervous. Then he smiled. Truly smiled. Older, weaker, but unmistakably her father. "Good." She blinked. "Good? I would have preferred a formal introduction before the proposal, but war rarely respects etiquette." A laugh escaped her. Bail's smile softened. "Does he make you feel safe?" Leia thought of blaster fire, collapsing stations, asteroid fields, arguments, carbonite nightmares, and Han's hand finding hers in silence. "Yes," she said. "Not because danger goes away, because he stays." "Then good." Leia looked out the window again. "Everything is different now." "Yes. The Senate will use you. They will try. The surviving Alderaanians will look to you. And to you. I don't know if I can be what they need." Bail studied her. "You already are." Leia shook her head. "You keep saying things like that, as if saying them makes them true." "No, I say them because they are true." She turned sharply. "I am angry with you." "I know. I may be angry for a long time." "I know." "I love you." His eyes filled. "I know that too," he whispered. Leia moved to his bedside, and this time, when he reached for her, she did not hesitate. Later that night, Luke found her in one of the quiet gardens built inside the old Senate complex. It was not a true garden, not like Alderaan's, but someone had planted white flowers beneath a glass dome. Leia suspected Mon Mothma. The gesture was too gentle to be accidental. Luke sat beside her. For a while, they listened to distant traffic. "I'm glad he's alive," Luke said. "So am I. I'm sorry it hurts, too." Leia looked at him. "You don't have to apologize for my feelings." "I know. He exhaled. I found something in Vader that gave me peace. I think I wanted that for you. Leia touched one of the white flowers. Its petals were delicate, almost translucent. I don't want peace with Vader, she said. Not yet. Maybe not ever. Luke nodded. That doesn't mean I reject you, she added. He looked at her quickly. Leia's expression softened. You are my brother. I'm still learning how to say that, without feeling like the galaxy is playing a cruel joke. A small smile tugged at Luke's mouth. It does sound strange. It sounds impossible. Most true things do at first. Leia rolled her eyes. That sounds like something a Jedi says when he has no useful answer. It is. She laughed, and Luke laughed with her. Then he grew serious. Who do you want to be, Leia? The question settled between them. Once she would have answered without hesitation. A senator, a rebel, a daughter of Alderaan, a servant of democracy. Now each answer felt true and incomplete. I don't want Vader to define me, she said. He doesn't. I don't want blood to erase love. It can't. I don't want the galaxy to look at me and see him. Luke's voice was gentle. Some will. Leia closed her eyes. But not the people who know you, he said. And not forever. Leia opened her eyes and looked at the flowers under glass. Snow lilies bloom even beneath glass. My father used to tell me, courage was choosing love after pain, she said. He was right. Leia nodded slowly. Then I choose it. The next morning, Leia Organa entered the Senate chamber. Rumors had already reached fever pitch. Senators turned as she walked in, whispers rippling through the restored hall. Some looked sympathetic, some hungry, some afraid. They had heard of Bail's return. They had heard worse things, too. The name Vader moved through political circles like a hidden blade. Leia wore white, not because she wished to look innocent. She was done performing innocence for people who mistook purity for strength. She wore white because Alderaan had dressed its heirs in winter colors during times of mourning and renewal. Her hair was braided in the style Breya had taught her. Around her throat hung a small pendant Bail had given her when she first entered public service. Han watched from the gallery, uncomfortable in formal clothes. Luke stood beside him, calm and proud. Chewbacca, newly arrived, occupied more space than the gallery seating had anticipated. Bail Organa appeared by hollow from the medical suite. The chamber fell silent. He spoke first. His voice was weaker than it had once been, but the Senate remembered it. Even those too young to have heard him before seemed to understand they were listening to a ghost who had returned with unfinished business. He told them about the survivors in the drift, about Imperial pursuit, about Alderaan's final records, about the duty of the New Republic to rescue, restore, and remember. Then he turned his head slightly, looking toward Leia. My daughter has carried Alderaan through fire, he said, not because of blood, nor title, nor the permission of any government, but because she chose to live by its highest ideals when hatred would have been easier. Leia's throat tightened. Bail's image flickered, but his voice remained steady. There will be those who try to define us by what the Empire did to us, by the worlds it shattered, by the names it twisted, by the bloodlines it corrupted. I reject this. Alderaan was never merely stone and sea. It was a promise. My daughter is heir to that promise. Leia rose. Every eye turned to her. For a moment, she saw the Death Star, Vader, Tarkin, Alderaan becoming light. Then she saw Bail holding out his arms to a frightened child, Breha teaching her to braid flowers into her hair, Luke offering her a brother's patience, Han telling her she was Alderaan because he had never seen the planet, only the woman it made. Leia stepped to the speaker's platform. My name is Leia Organa, she said. The chamber listened. I was raised by Bail and Leia Organa of Alderaan. I was loved by them, taught by them, and shaped by a world the Empire murdered because it feared peace joined with courage. Nothing can change that. No secret, no bloodline, no shadow. A few senators shifted uneasily. Leia lifted her chin. Yes, she said, before they could whisper it for her. Darth Vader was my birth father. The chamber erupted. Han surged to his feet in the gallery. Luke caught his arm. Leia did not flinch. She waited. Slowly, silence returned. Vader tortured me, she said. He terrorized the galaxy. He helped build the machine that destroyed my home. I will not soften that truth for anyone's comfort. But neither will I allow his crimes to become my identity. Her voice grew stronger. The Empire believed blood determined destiny. It believed power gave meaning. It believed fear could rewrite truth. The New Republic must be better. We are not what tyrants name us. We are what we choose when naming ourselves costs us something. Mon Mothma watched with shining eyes. Leia looked across the chamber at former rebels, cautious politicians, frightened worlds, opportunists, dreamers, survivors. I choose Alderaan, she said. I choose the Republic. I choose the work of healing what the Empire broke. And I ask this Senate to do the same. For a heartbeat, nothing happened. Then Bail Organa, pale and flickering in blue light, bowed his head. Luke began to applaud. Han followed, loudly and defiantly. Chewbacca. Others joined. Not all, not even most at first, but enough. The sound grew, uneven and imperfect, like the New Republic itself. Leia stood beneath it, not healed, not whole in any simple way, but rooted. Afterward, in a private corridor away from cameras and senators, Han caught up with her. You okay? He asked. No. He nodded. Yeah, figured. She looked at him, and the corner of her mouth lifted. But I think I will be. That's better than nothing. He shifted awkwardly, then reached into his jacket. So, since your father's alive and terrifying, I guess I should ask this properly. Leia stared. Han. He produced a small ring. It was not royal. It was not polished enough for court. It looked old, Corellian, simple, and stubborn. I had a better speech before all the secret father revelations and Imperial ambushes, he said. I doubt that. Fair. He took her hand. Marry me anyway? Leia looked at the ring, then at him. For so long, identity had felt like something taken from her. Alderaan taken, her parents taken, her bloodline hidden, her name threatened by Vader's shadow. But this choice was hers. Her grief was hers. Her anger was hers. Her love was hers. And her future, fragile as a snow lily beneath glass, was hers too. Yes, Leia said. Han smiled, relief breaking across his face. Behind them, someone cleared his throat. They turned. Bail Organa sat in a repulsor chair at the end of the corridor, attended by a deeply disapproving medical droid and the damaged but dignified Tehran Vesh. Luke stood behind him, looking entirely too pleased with himself. Han froze. Your Highness, Senator, Sir. I was going to ask permission, but events were moving fast. Bail considered him solemnly. Leia narrowed her eyes. Father. At last, Bail smiled. Captain Solo, he said, my daughter has never needed anyone's permission to choose her life. I would only advise you not to mistake her acceptance for surrender. Han glanced at Leia. Wouldn't dream of it. Good. Leia laughed, and this time it did not break. Bail held out his hand. Han shook it with surprising care. For one impossible moment, they stood together in the corridor of a half-built republic. The princess, the smuggler, the Jedi brother, the father returned from the dead, and the broken droid carrying the last records of a murdered world. Outside, Coruscant traffic streamed through the dawn. Inside, Leia Organa felt the shape of home changing. Not restored, not replaced, carried. Alderaan lived in memory, in law, in stubborn mercy, in every survivor who refused to let the Empire have the final word. It lived in Bail's weary smile, in Luke's quiet hope, in Han's reckless devotion. It lived in Leia's own heart, not as a wound alone, but as a flame. She was not Vader's shadow. She was not the Empire's secret. She was not only what had been lost. She was Leia Organa of Alderaan, and she would decide what that meant.